4 verse 1. But it displeased Jonah exceedingly, and he was very angry. Okay, what happened is he went into Nineveh, he preached, and they heeded his message, they repented, they got right with God, and he got mad. The craziest thing. Jonah didn't want Nineveh to get right, obviously, or he wouldn't have got mad, he would have got glad. But at this point, Nineveh is the arch enemy of Israel. If he goes up there when God has already said, I'm going to destroy your enemy, and you go up there and you put the brakes on it so God doesn't destroy that enemy, now he feels like he's a traitor to Israel. These are our enemies, and I just patched things up, and we can't trust them. It'd be like us making some kind of a peace deal with Russia. That ain't going to last. That's what he's thinking. Okay, yeah, they're doing that today. God gave them 40 days. Now you're going to see, I think what he does is he says, okay, God, they fooled you. They pulled one over on you. They're all repenting and you're being nice to them. He runs outside the city. I'm getting ahead of myself. He runs outside the city and he sits down. Why didn't he go home? He ran outside the city and sat down because 40 days have not yet expired. He's waiting to see how long this thing's going to actually last. Because if they can't keep doing right for 40 days, he thinks maybe God will go ahead and annihilate them. I think is where he's going with this thing. Matthew chapter 20. Matthew 20, verse 15. Jonah's angry. Obviously, God's not. That's a tricky spot to be in. If God's angry, then it's a good time to get angry. If God's happy, good time to get happy. Try to keep up with him. Matthew 20, verse 15. Jesus speaking. Is it not lawful for me to do that, what I will with mine own? Is thine eye evil because I am good? Jonah, you're being wicked. You're trying to make God wicked in order to be your buddy. That's what he wanted. He didn't want to change to get in line with God. He wanted God to change and get in line with him. He didn't really like those people. That's a scary spot. Now that's the thing the whole world wants. They want God to bend to their will. He doesn't do that. Luke chapter 15. Luke 15 verse 27. Luke 15, this is the prodigal son. Luke 15:27, the father talking. And he said unto him, Thy brother is come, and thy father hath killed the fatted calf, because he hath received him safe and sound. Okay, happy good times. The prodigal's come home, verse 28. And he was angry. There's Jonah. And would not go in. Therefore came his father out and entreated him. That's what God's doing with Jonah. God was really merciful to Jonah, I think. You'll see as we get through this chapter, he keeps having a dialogue with him. God knows how wicked Jonah is. Jonah knows how wicked he is. But God's wanting to have a dialogue about it. Look at James chapter 4. Oh, we've already had a whole sermon on this. James 4 verse 6. But he giveth more grace, wherefore he saith, God resisteth the proud, but giveth grace unto the humble. That's exactly what just happened. The whole town of Nineveh humbled themselves. So they got right in the plan that God has. If you're humble, I give you mercy and grace. If you get proud and you bow up, which is what Jonah's doing, he says that it's not going to work out too good. Don't resist him. Look at Jonah. Jonah 4 verse 2. Jonah's going to have him a little prayer meeting. Jonah 4 verse 2. And he prayed unto the Lord and said, I pray thee, O Lord, was not this my saying when I was yet in my country? Therefore I fled before unto Tarshish, For I knew that thou art a gracious God, and merciful, and slow to anger, and of great kindness, and repentest thee of the evil. Well, end of story. You know who God is. He's not changed. What did he think? God was going to suddenly change? No. He said, that's why I didn't come to start with. Okay, I thought if you showed up, maybe you had accepted that's who he is. But he didn't. He was still holding on to an animosity. Now, we'd call it prejudice. Now, I don't think it's racial prejudice, but it's national prejudice. These people have been persecuting Israel since their existence. And there's this turmoil going on. And so, that's real. He was put on a tough mission. There's no doubt about that. I mean, he put in a spot that would have been hard for any of us to go to. But once God says, do it, and then you see God's hand in these people repenting, I think it'd be time to get on board. Exodus 34, verse 7. It's no secret who God is. He's revealed himself from the very beginning of the Bible, especially to an Israelite. Exodus 34:7. Keeping mercy for thousands, forgiving iniquity and transgression and sin. That's a whole bunch of them. Forgiving iniquity. Okay, what's iniquity? Teaching someone else to sin. Transgression. Breaking a rule, that's right. Sin. Something done against God publicly or privately. And that will by no means clear the guilty. Visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children and upon the children's children unto the third and fourth generation. That's who God is. I think I've covered this before, but when he visits, it's not meaning like the charismatics take it that it's a generational curse. He's visiting in order to give them an opportunity to break the habit of their family. He's giving them grace here. He says basically the same thing in Numbers. Look at it in Psalms 103, verse 8. Psalms 103, verse 8. One of the things you'll notice about all the minor prophets is this is one of the messages that they have. God's gracious and merciful, turn to him. Even though they have a really hard message. And I mean, they're preaching about end times and hellfire damnation, but God's merciful and gracious. It's always that two-sided thing. Psalms 103, verse 8. The Lord is merciful and gracious, slow to anger, and plenteous in mercy. Not Jonah. Jonah was not slow to anger. I think his anger's been building since he went fishing. Jonah 4, verse 3. Jonah 4, verse 3. Therefore now, O Lord, take, I beseech thee, my life from me. For it is better for me to die than to live. Well, that's a good reason to have your life taken away. If it's better for you to die than it is to live, and he's done the right thing, he asked God to take it. He wasn't really serious about this, or he would have taken his own life. He's a big boy. Now, he's venting here. This is what they tell you nowadays, is it does you good to vent. No, it doesn't. That builds it. It doesn't extinguish it. When a man takes on a God-sized task, the natural response is this, suicidal tendency, because it's more than human can bear, because it's God-sized. When Jonah goes to Nineveh, that's a weird thing. He thought from the beginning, that's an impossible mission right there. Well, God showed him, I can make it possible. He did. He got there. Then the whole town repents. Well, that's not working out the way he sees the future. Okay, well, God knows what's going on. All through the Bible, you find this thing. Just because a man is a great man and a good Bible character does not mean everything about them is good. And the Bible is not shy about showing you their faults. I'm going to show you in here. One of the big things that's going on right now since COVID has been suicide. And for different reasons. So if someone wants to be a social worker, they need to be able to confront the problem of suicide. The Bible does handle it. It tells you about it. Most people don't know where it is or that it's in the Bible. It is actually in the Bible. The first one I'll look at is in Numbers chapter 11. Numbers 11 verse 15. Moses says, I just feel like dying. And if thou deal thus with me, kill me, I pray thee, out of hand. And if I have found favor in thy sight, and let me not see my wretchedness. Okay, he's throwing a temper tantrum. But he's saying there's just no hope. Now there's a reason for it. So that's the thing to notice in all of these biblical suicides, is the reason for it and how God handles it. Because people are the same today. They'll have these same tendencies toward suicide for the same reasons. Here, Moses' reason was he felt like he had too much responsibility. And that was responsibility given to him by God. And you can go through the passage and find out why and how all that works out. But that's the first one. The next one is in 1 Kings 19. 1 Kings 19 verse 4. Here's Elijah. But he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness, and came and sat down under a juniper tree. And he requested for himself that he might die, and said, It is enough now, O Lord, take away my life, for I am not better than my fathers. Did God tell him he had to be better than his fathers? Okay. He's doing this because he's ashamed. A woman made him run. After killing 450 prophets of Baal, a woman comes out there and scolds him, and he heads for the hills. So now he says, I'm no better than my father. I thought I was somebody, and now look, I preached one message, and we had a nice altar call, and had heads rolling everywhere. And now some woman comes out there and scolds me, and I'm running. Just take my life. Okay, it's doing it for shame. Okay, so some people, shame will push them towards suicide. So you go through and you find out what God says to do about that. And that one, the answer was, listen for God. It's a still small voice, not a big. Suicide is a major orchestrated event. They do this because they think it's going to get everybody's attention. That's what Elijah's doing here. Big orchestrated event. God, just take my life, and I'm never. Well, what? Let me show you who I am. Okay, still small voice. Slow it down. The next one is Job. Job 3 verse 20. Job 3 verse 20. I think the reason for Job's is perceived injustice. Job thinks, and really, Job has done right. Not only is the devil beating him up, God's not giving him relief, and now his good buddies have turned against him too. It seems like everybody's turned against him, and there's no reason for it. Job 3 verse 20. Wherefore is light given to him that is in misery, and life unto the bitter in soul, which long for death, but it cometh not, and dig for it more than for hid treasures, which rejoice exceedingly and were glad when they can find the grave. It's a bad day. I'd just be happy if I could die. Put me out of my misery. That's what he's talking about, is misery. In chapter 6, Job 6, verse 8. Job 6, verse 8, he says, Oh, that I might have my request, and that God would grant me the thing that I long for, even that it would please God to destroy me. Just get it over with. That he would loose his hand and cut me off. He wants to die. He's asking God to do it, just like Jonah, but Jonah's doing it for a different reason. Okay, the next one is 2 Samuel 17. Ahithophel. 2 Samuel 17, verse 1. This is when Absalom has usurped the throne, David has run, and Solomon has two counselors. And they both come in to give him advice on what the next move should be. Should we go pursue David and overtake him, or should we build up the army and set up the kingdom first? What's our next move? 2 Samuel 17:1. Moreover, Ahithophel said unto Absalom, Let me now choose out 12,000 men, and I will arise and pursue after David this night. I'm ready to go, set me loose. So that was his advice. His advice is, let's go get him. Verse 4. And the saying pleased Absalom well, and all the elders of Israel. Well, that just encouraged him. They see what I see. We got to go get him. Verse 14. And Absalom and all the men of Israel said, The counsel of Hushai the Archite is better than the counsel of Ahithophel. Uh-oh. It made him look bad. I say his is pity. He has self-pity. Look at verse 14. Where am I? The counsel of Hushai the Archite is better than the counsel of Ahithophel. For the Lord had appointed to defeat the good counsel of Ahithophel, to the intent that the Lord might bring evil upon Absalom. So the fact of the matter was, similarly to Job, he was right. But God had just orchestrated events so that right didn't come to the surface yet. Yeah, right. Look at verse 23. Yeah, to defeat the good counsel, yep. 2 Samuel 17:23. And when Ahithophel saw that his counsel was not followed, he saddled his ass, rose up, got him home to his house, to his city, and put his house in order, and hanged himself. And he died, and was buried in the sepulchre of his father. This man has more guts than the rest of them. When he says, I'm going to commit suicide, he does it. He's not playing. Self-pity. Now, that's a tough one. Because here, he was actually right. God even said it was good counsel. But I've already determined that I'm going to overthrow it. So then you have to go back to the difference is righteousness versus sin. As far as just a counsel of war is concerned, his advice would have been proper. The thing to do was pursue. When your enemy's running, go after them. But when it comes to God, there's a side that's right and a side that's wrong. One's sinful and one's righteous. And it's sinful to usurp the throne. And God had put David on the throne, not Absalom. So therefore, you don't support that side. And then we've got Jonah. We were talking about Jonah. His problem is pride, or probably pride, because I think we never see him go home. In this chapter, the last place we see Jonah is sitting outside the city. He doesn't go back home. He probably won't go back home, because if he goes back home, it'll be found out he's a false prophet. He prophesied this thing. Nobody will give him a meeting anywhere. The other one is Judas Iscariot, John chapter 13. Other reason for suicide is satanic. Judas Iscariot is not normal, it's Satan influence. He's come to kill and to destroy. John 13:27. And after the sop, Satan entered into him. Then said Jesus to him, That thou doest, do quickly. Kill yourself quickly. No. Luke 22, verse 3. Luke 22, verse 3. This is the second thing that happens. This is not the same, talking about the same event. Then entered Satan into Judas, surnamed Iscariot, being of the number of the 12. So we have at least twice that Satan entered him, right there. So he's possessed. So Matthew 27:5, and he cast down the pieces of silver in the temple and departed and went and hanged himself. Got the job done. But that was satanic. He was being possessed. Now there's a good one in here. Doesn't commit suicide. You got to look close to see it. 2 Corinthians 12 verse 4, I say Paul. Paul wanted to check out early. Of all of them, I'd say his is the most righteous reason, but not really. It's more selfish too. 2 Corinthians 12:4. He's talking about a time that he was allowed to go to heaven. First verses tells you he can't tell you who it was, but it's him. It's clearly him that he's talking about. I knew a man above 14 years ago, whether in the body or out of the body, I can't tell. Verse 4. How that he was caught up into paradise and heard unspeakable words, which it is not lawful for a man to utter. Well, if you got all of that, you'd want to go back. Philippians 1:23, he says this, For I am in a strait betwixt two, having a desire to depart. I'm ready to get out of here. And to be with Christ, which is far better. Well, he's already seen that it was far better. We've read about it, and, we make our mind tell us, this is the fact, and it's going to be better. He actually saw it better.
So, beside that, before he was used of the Lord after his conversion, he also was with the Lord for 3 years being taught by him.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. In Arabia. Yeah. Yeah, so he's ready to get this show over with, and he keeps seeing things get worse and worse. His churches are falling apart. He keeps writing back to them, hey, you got problems going on. I was just there. I told you about it. And he's like, man, let's just get this thing over with. Probably the same way we feel. Jonah chapter 4, verse 4. Jonah 4, verse 4. Then said the Lord, this is a long verse. Then said the Lord, doest thou well to be angry? Sometimes there's questions in the Bible that are just, they pop off the page. This is a good one. Are you doing well to be angry? Remember that one. Put that one in your head. And the next time you get mad, the Holy Spirit will ask you that. Now that I've said it, he will do it. You'll remember it. The next time you get mad, he'll say, doest thou well to be angry? And see how nice that sounds? Are you doing good right now? He could have been mean to him, but he wasn't mean. He just said, look, what you're doing is not good. Is that good right now? Whew. God's a lot more merciful than we give him credit for. Yeah, that's right. In Numbers 20, verse 11, the Bible says this, And Moses lifted up his hand, and with his rod he smote the rock twice, and the water came out abundantly, and the congregation drank, and their beast also. You know the story. He was supposed to speak to the rock, and he didn't. He was mad. That was not good. We preached on it this morning. I preached on it this morning, I guess. Anger. Anger is one of those things that blinds your mind. You can't think straight when you're angry. Here, Moses is angry. We're going to find there's a bunch of reasons for it, and the penalty for it is very, very stiff. I would have given Moses a harsher sentence for murdering a man and hiding his body in the sand than I would for him giving water to 2 million people who were dying of thirst. Doesn't seem like the two are balanced. But to God they are, because he says, I'm setting up pictures here. You don't understand it. It's none of your business. You just do what I say. It's for people that may or may not ever exist. Us. Look at verse 12. Numbers 20, verse 12. And the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron. He says this, because ye believed me not to sanctify me in the eyes of the children of Israel, therefore ye shall not bring this congregation into the land which I have given them. He says, that didn't sanctify me in their eyes. It made you look powerful, not me. That's what happens when we get mad. We got to do something powerful to vent. I don't even think there's a reason behind it. We just do it. It's not right. Look at verse 24. Aaron shall be gathered unto his people, for he shall not enter into the land which I have given unto the children of Israel, because ye rebelled against my word at the water of Meribah. You'll need that one for Deuteronomy 33. Psalm 106, verse 32. Here's where it's really tough. You know, these people, Moses made it a lot longer than any of us would have. The Bible calls him the meekest man on the earth. And he did this. But these people have been nagging him nonstop. And so here's what happens. Psalms 106, verse 32. They angered him also at the water of strife, so that it went ill with Moses for their sake. I'd say so. He's the one that got punished for them nagging him till he was at his wit's end. So, we could blame it on the people, and yes, they are to blame, but our response is always our response. We're accountable for that. Look at it, verse 33. Because they provoked his spirit, so that he spake unadvisedly with his lips. It was their fault. He spake unadvisedly with his lips. Doesn't matter. He did it. Doesn't matter how bad he was provoked. He should not have done it. Whew. Easier said than done. I'm not pointing my finger and wagging my finger and saying, naughty boy, I would have done better, because I wouldn't have. But we shouldn't. We shouldn't. Ecclesiastes 7, verse 9. Ecclesiastes 7, verse 9. It says, be not hasty in thy spirit to be angry. Why? Because you're an idiot if you're an angry person. For anger resteth in the bosom of fools. You want to look like a fool? You want to welcome in the spirit that fools have? Then be hasty to get angry. Ugh. All right, back to Jonah. Look at another passage where he gets mad. Jonah 4, look at verse 9. Jonah 4, verse 9. Here's what anger does. It doesn't stop with your first object of anger. Suddenly, everything is worthy of your wrath. Jonah 4, verse 9. And God said to Jonah, dost thou well to be angry for the gourd? We went on from sinners getting right. You're angry about that. Now you're angry about a gourd that's lived its life. What else are you going to get mad about? And he said, I do well to be angry, even unto death. Okay, you see how his brain is going? His mind is being blinded. You're not doing right to be angry about a gourd. Go find you another one. Micah chapter 6, verse 3. Micah 6, verse 3. This is the same thing God's saying to Jonah, trying to wake him up, trying to make his mind uncloud, get him back to reason. O my people, God speaking, what have I done unto thee? And wherein have I wearied thee? Testify against me. You're mad at me. Prove to me why you're mad. That's what he's doing. Over and over he says, I've done these people good. I did all I could for them. If you can find where I did something wrong, let me know. And he hasn't. James 1:20, the Bible says this, for the wrath of man worketh not the righteousness of God. And that's fact. The Bible does say to be angry and sin not. Don't know anybody who's ever done it other than Jesus Christ, and he's God. Okay, well, there's a difference there. Okay, so we need to steer clear of anger. As a matter of fact, anger is not only not going to work the righteousness of God, it's going to work the works of the devil. That's what it's going to do. And we better stop it there. I had 2 more verses I was going to cover, but we'll stop it there because that's going to get into something. Yep. All right, we'll stop it there and pick up there next week.